we're not trying hard enough. I'm sorry. We're not trying hard enough. I see, we're talking about a felon being elected. I see felons being celebrated left and right. I see I'm sorry, these quote unquote artists with this garbage ass music, and and I see little kids twerking and popping to it and shit. It's like no one's talking about that. No one's talking about how we have sold our soul for hee-hees and haw-haws. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody want to talk about that shit. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that everybody wants to talk about love at the macro level. Marriage, marriage, love, love, relationships, relationships. Motherfuckers can't even have a conversation with each other. People, adults don't even know how to have conversations with each other. You know how many boyfriends and girlfriends, you know how many husbands and wives can't even begin to have a basic serious conversation with their partner because the other person, they say, they get too emotional, or even the person who's saying the other person gets too defensive and takes it the wrong way. They can't even begin to communicate. We're not trying to comprehend our humanity, man. It's still, we're really, when I look at my parents' generation, and then when I even look at the civil rights era, when I look at interviews, and just like our energy is so erratic and chaotic, we don't have that grounded, rooted in the moment interest in being mature and being serious and being articulate and being sophisticated, and not for the sake of impressing anybody, but because you become, being sharp in and of itself is its own reward. Teaching your children, what's up with these kids are ridiculous, man. Take their phones away. Seriously. I know it's like beating a dead horse with this. All I'm saying is, like, we're getting stupider. We are stupid. You're not smart just because you're like, go vote. I'm sorry, that's not enough. If you're saying go vote, and then the other fucking 300 days that are left in the year, or whatever, the 364 days outside of that, you just talking out of your ass, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. Our standards aren't good enough, by the way. And let's let you know, the people on the other side who you just can't imagine how they voted for this person, they see it. They see there's no credibility. And I would argue, yes, I agree with you. There's no credibility. There's nothing but hypocrisy and contradictory elements on the other side as well. But it's just, to me, it's a 101, a harmony 101. Every time I've ever had an issue with a person, whether they were close to me or not, you have to be able to see your bullshit in order to establish credibility. When I'm having a discussion with somebody that I'm having a disagreement with, whether or not there's a close loved one, or it's just whomever, you have to be able to admit how much of a fool you are in whatever regards, how hypocritical you are. You have to, not because nobody is trying to listen to somebody that is high and mighty, and then the other argument is no, because somebody has to be the bigger and better person. I'm not even talking about in the political world. I'm talking about just in, like, even so many families are familiar with toxic interactions. And I mean, so many relationships that you're familiar with toxic interactions. The only way that I have come to see to really establish harmony with a kind of with a toxic person is you cannot be focused on how bad they are and how bad you're not. That can't be your fixation. Your focus has to be on what exactly, precisely is being spoken to. And then you have to then exactly, precisely focus on that. And then if any other topics come up, then they come up. It has to be about the subject at hand. It's the specificity matters, but nobody wants to really acknowledge that. I'm sorry. It's just, I'll say again, pro-life is BS in many regards for many people, because in actuality, it's more, they don't care about the life of the child after their birth. But you have to speak to exactly to what they're saying, whether or not you believe them to be hypocritical. If they believe a child is actually existing at the level of they're a person upon conception or upon a few weeks, whatever, you have to speak to that. It can't be about if you're saying it's your body as a woman and it's your choice. Yes, that could be reasonable and that could be its own stance, but then it can't be therefore I'm dismissing you, even though they're dismissing you. That my point is on both sides, there's not enough conversation. It can't be about a felon has been elected president when we celebrate felons. It can't be about the police need to be defunded and all corrupt. When I see there's just tons of videos out there where people are acting plumb fools with cops. People are all the way in the wrong with cops. People are doing all the antagonistic things in the world with a cop that's super patient and stuff. You have to reconcile the two truths. It's not just I guess what it happens is it's just pure demonization on both sides. Both sides have an interest in pure demonization. That has to stop. It has to stop because I honestly see the viewpoint in literally everybody's point of view. And the conclusion that I come to when I acknowledge how a person perceives things, no matter what their political party is or what country they're from, what I notice is what's being missed. There are many truths that exist at the same time, and a person at any given moment is only acknowledging the truths that serve them. They're only acknowledging the truths, and this is the good person or the quote-unquote bad person. This is the stupid person or the quote-unquote smart person. They acknowledge only the truths that serve them, that serve the narrative that they want to stick to. No one wants to feel uncomfortable and bad about acknowledging the profound flaws on their particular side. That's why I'm obsessed with acknowledging how much of a fool I am. That is literally one of the most frightening things for me, is to be delusional as to how much of a fool I am. And then people are like, no, you're not a fool. Yes, I am. It is because we're not acknowledging how susceptible we are to being unreasonable, how susceptible we are to being irrational, how susceptible we are to being ethnocentric and prejudiced in our own ways. Both, again, everybody is guilty. And if you want to go to the specifics on how, no, but they're guilty to this extent. My point is, until I don't believe anyone, until I see people admit their shit and then put effort into doing something about it, until I stop seeing trash promoted by people who claim they care about substance, people who claim they care about healing, people who claim they care about harmony, people who claim they care about the well-being of humanity, the well-being of this country. I see people fixated on trash. I see people fixated on nonsense. So it doesn't add up. It just does not add up. We have to care more about humanity as a whole, man. And we're going to continue to get candidates that aren't worthy of us. We're going to get candidates that aren't worthy of us because we're not, you know why? We're not worthy. We are not worthy of we are so spoiled. We are not as mighty, and as we don't have no moral high ground when there's no criticism. There's no criticism of the maladies that exist in our world. I don't see anybody constantly talking about how, guys, we got to be healthier. We got to be better. Our kids, they're so mentally polluted. Look at how much they're on their phones and whatnot. Look at all of the trash they're ingesting visually and auditorily. And look at us, who is allowing them to listen to it, how we think it's cute or we think it's funny or we just like laughing like that's them. There's no communal spirit. There's no communal spirit for anybody to have any sense of moral high ground. There is no moral high ground no more, man. Everybody is so evidently you can say what you want. Everybody's so clearly out for themselves because life is hard. Everybody's working. People got your kids. You're worrying about your bills. I get it. But until we begin to focus on things outside of just two pretty people having relationships and shit, just marriage, just because, I'm sorry, throw this crap away where it's love. Romantic love is the most important. No, it's not. The most important kind of love that we can all have is a kind of platonic, collaborative love with each other. If we, it don't matter. Your relationship, your fucking romance with your boo ain't gonna matter a damn at all if this country falls apart. If our social fabric unravels, relationships ain't gonna, the kind of relationship that first and foremost needs to be focused on is the ones that we have with each other at a platonic basic level. But those are like disregarded as unimportant, and instead it's all about just like bonds. And then when people do talk about the romantic aspects, it's all so shallow and superficial. It's not about mentality. I don't see anybody talking about elevating the mentality. People talk about high frequency, high vibration. There's no books people are talking about. There's no subjects. People talk about the fact we're all gonna die. There's nothing talking about the fact that everybody sold their soul and our music is soulless. There's nobody talking about that. And all the kids are just listening to this bullshit. And it's just, again, we're all he and ha and constantly at just nonsense. There's nobody saying anything about it. There's no one challenging it. So you are a participant. You are a participant, whether tacitly or directly. And so my point is, until I see efforts to be a more evolved and high-minded human being, like I just don't believe, I just don't feel anything for people who are complaining about society and what you don't care about society, man. You don't, and because it is evidenced by what I'm not saying you need to. I'm not saying be like me, post every day, or post as all your posts need to be dedicated to being quote unquote high-minded, to being quote unquote somebody who's seeking an internal richness, to somebody who's seeking. I mean, that honestly, just all of the powerful elements of a supposed Christian spirit. I mean, again, I am not a Christian. I am not religious in any. I'm not religious. However, I respect the actuality of what the Christian spirit is supposed to be bringing. It's supposed to be bringing a concern about the insides. It's supposed to be bringing a concern about harmony. It's supposed to be bringing a dismissal of the material. That's not what we're doing. That's not what our concerns are. That's not what we care about. And I would like for us to be more honest about the fact we're full of shit and stop acting as if we're high and mighty and stop focusing on the. It's a very weak thing to never want to admit your flaws and your maladies because you fear other people will say something about it. Other people will take it away. They're always going to do that. They'll always do that. And if they do that, they do that. But what's more important is the growth that comes from confessing, admitting you're a fool, admitting you're weak, admitting your concerns haven't been healthy, and then going on that path, and then doing your best, making your best efforts to do a 180. It's gotta, our culture has to change. Our lives, our lifestyles have to change.